Hey traders, Cousin Benny coming to you on Sunday the 22nd with a look at the week ahead and some thoughts as well as some chart setups for Monday, Tuesday, as well as some chart setups. This is the chart of the comp. We noted last weekend that we saw the 40 period moving average here on the weekly chart holding, and we broke above the 20 period moving average, and prices are now testing those highs at 43.71.71 with a MACD cross. So NAMO has turned back up, and the number of stocks trading above their 50 period moving average on the NASDAQ is at 84. So for the time being, it looks like we're going to go higher. If you take into consideration the Fed talking about not raising interest rates in the near future, I believe that the note said sometime in 2015, so interest sensitive stocks are being affected as well. The industrials were flagging here on the weekly chart again above the breakout area here and just below 17,000 with a MACD cross. New York Composite at highs, just continuing to thrust higher. MACD cross back in March, April, back in April, back in May. The Russell looks like risk is on, continues. Since we bottomed here, we didn't get our lower prices down to 382, so I really need to adjust that. We have a MACD cross, and the rate of change has turned back up and is heading higher. I would suspect that we are going to test this upper trend line, that we're going to test this trend line that we pointed out last weekend as prices continue to move higher. At a minimum, we should test that line, which is now lining up with the previous highs. So risk is on for the time being. S&P 500 on the weekly again, flagging out and moving higher this past week as the Fed continues to hold interest rates down. MACD cross, we got the NYMO turning back up, basically moving sideways, so there's no resistance there. And the number of stocks on the S&P 500 above their 50 is at 8840. So this is an area where we have turned down in the past, so we have to consider that as well. But for the time being, things look pretty good. TNX, the 10-year yield, as you would expect. We had resistance here at this crossover, and the moving average is moving lower. 3 weeks in a row now we've tested that 10 period on the 20 period on the weekly chart and have moved off of that level. So we're watching the support level down below, and MACD looks like it's flattening out for the most part. Arca Institutional Index, XII, you guys know I follow this if you are a subscriber to the site. The Arca Institutional Index is 75 stocks most commonly held by institutions as their core holdings. That's significant in that you want to watch what they're buying, what they're selling, and the change in that particular index. MACD cross, if we look at the daily, we can see where we have a double top here and we are flagging out. So the XII still looks good. We may see some temporary resistance here. Let's take a look at some chart lists. The Bollinger Band chart list for this week. We'll select the sector and categorize these. We can see there's a lot in financial, as you would expect, with the Fed mentioning interest rates not being raised until 2015. Healthcare looking pretty good, and we have a few names in industrials and technology, as well as energy continuing to shine. Looking at percent change, we can see that Acorn, a pick that Mikey looked at this past week with IBD and SLXP, as well as QCore, this name did quite well. So let's just jump right into the charts and go through those. ACT, just above these levels here. Note that the stochastics is turning here, so this is something we'll probably wait on this week. What we want to see is the turn, and then MACD have a nice cross with momentum, which we're not seeing just yet. So having some difficulty around here at this Kirby level. We'll watch Activist this week. Acorn, as Mikey pointed out, we had this nice descending trend line here and a breakout on Friday on volume. Note that the stochastics had turned previous to the turn in MACD, which is what we like to see when we have a Bollinger Band squeeze. It kind of gives us an indication which direction the stock may move. So we're above the Kirby level here. I would expect that this probably flags out or moves higher given what MACD is showing right now. Watch stochastic closely. Also note that Scooter has continued to move up, which is a stock chart's technical rank, very similar to IBD's ranking system. ALKS breaking above these levels here. Nice little shallow cup pattern here. I would expect that this is going to continue up to 55. Note the volume. Stochastic led and MACD is starting to turn up. So that's something to consider. American Tower, pretty much a flat base here. We got volume building, we got stochastic leading, and MACD attempting to turn here. So I'd watch American Tower going into a week for a continuation up to at least this recent high and maybe a breakout if Bollinger Bands expand. Ashford Hospitality, more of these names in the REIT trust area are testing recent highs here. I would expect that this is going to turn up and continue higher given given the Fed's reluctance to raise rates. All of these REITs look good. Ball Corp at highs here. Note the volume. Stochastics leading and MACD turning. Another good name. Basic Energy, along with a lot of the energy stocks that broke out last week, lagging a bit, but we have volume. Aside from this one spike here, it looks like someone got out of the name. We had stochastic leading and MACD pretty much flat. Not the best energy stock, but looks good nonetheless. Callon Petroleum, this one looks good. Huge burst in volume last week. I don't know what the news was. I checked on StockTwits as well as a few other sites to see if there was news out there. If you know what it is, just give me a ring. Cousin Vinny at gmail.com with 2 N's on cousin. cousin.vinny at gmail.com. Kira Fusion, this is a name in the medical space. Medical instruments, they deal with microlaparoscopic instruments, which Mikey told me are smaller instruments, smaller incisions, and it benefits with lower prices. And I'm not sure how that affects insurance companies, but something to consider on a stock that looks pretty good. Volume is really nice here. Considering a few down days, we had a huge amount of volume being accumulated here. Stochastics led and MACD is just now crossing, so this one should continue higher on Monday. Cigna, nice cup, double bottom inside of the cup with a handle being built here, pretty much sideways, decreasing volume, and then a move higher in volume on Friday. Note stochastics is leading and MACD looks like it wants to turn on Cigna Corp. Cisco, noting the sideways action here, the nice volume increase, slow stock, but stochastics is leading. MACD should turn as well, and we should see higher prices on Cisco. Corning, we pointed out last week, midweek, Wednesday, Thursday, volume did peak on Friday. We had this ascending, sort of shallow ascending triangle pattern. Stochastics leading and MACD just now turning. Cube, Smart, CUBE, burst in volume, RSI continuing to move higher. This one should break out on Monday. with stochastic leading and MACD flat, which looks like it should turn. Note that Scooter is moving higher as well. So Cube is looking pretty good. Cube is another REIT, industrial space. Keep an eye on them for the same reasons. Interest rates staying flat should benefit these interest-sensitive stocks in the REIT index. That actually is probably one of the better bets this week. If you manage to get into this before it probably is going to gap up tomorrow. We'll see. Eli Lilly, we pointed this flat top out a couple of weeks ago. There was a lot of mention on StockTwits, and this one just went on 12.5 million shares volume. Note Scooter is traveling higher. Stochastic led, and MACD's just now crossing. So if you're thinking about getting into some of these medical names, pharmaceuticals, wait for a flag at least for some of the steam to dissipate. Globus Medical, we got these recent highs, we got the Kirby to deal with, volume, flat MACD, stochastics leading, but it looks like it might be turning, so keep an eye on that. Healthcare REIT in this shallow descending pattern, volume increasing, stochastics led right in this area here, and we should see 64.50, 64.75 with MACD still turning. Humana, we pointed these out last Thursday, Friday when they were on the scan. Friday, many of these broke higher. We had a nice run on Humana as well as WellPoint and a few other healthcare names. Note the volume, stochastic leading, and MACD's just now turning, so this should break out Monday or Tuesday. iRobot, a nice name, descending pattern. I don't like to trade channels per se in a downtrend of this length and magnitude, but if you look at the box setup on this, you can definitely see how when prices are below the 10 period and the 30 period, you'd go short on any moves back up. You can see how this moves down. Once you have a crossover and a breakout, you trade now to the long side. So I'd wait for this to move back down into the box zone here for any trade on iRobot. iStar Financial, nice sideways action here. You want to trade this on a directional play. If it breaks out higher, bullish, and if it breaks lower, bearish. However, look at the 200 period moving average, continues to slope higher, so I would think this is going to move higher. Let's take a look at the box setup. It's moving sideways as well. So note the volume, stochastics leading, MACD's fairly flat. If it gets above this Kirby level, that would coincide with the top of this pattern, and you might see a breakout on this name. Kate Spade, we pointed this out on Wednesday and Thursday when it showed up on the scan. We had stochastics leading here, MACD turning higher. Volume peaked on Friday. Mikey and I were talking about this via iChat. As it is moving through this Kirby level that it's tested 1, 2, 3 times, it should go higher. We have this recent high back in March to deal with, but it looks pretty good. We saw it back here, and I thought it was going to have difficulty with this Kirby, but it did move higher despite what we thought. Mosaic, nice ascending triangle pattern. Note the huge volume that we'd seen this last week when it first showed up on the scan. We noted that the crossover of the stochastics was leading MACD, and then we had this volume that followed that, and we traveled higher. I would expect the prices will continue, perhaps move off of this upper Bollinger Band and then move higher because prices are above the Kirby. And obviously, when you see accumulation like this, funds are not in a stock for a $2 move. They're looking at this as a longer term move. If we look at Ichimoku, you can see that we had a nice sideways action here, bounce off of the Kumo, and prices are moving higher. Chiku right here is above prices. This is a very bullish pattern, and I would expect that we're going to see higher prices on Mosaic. Remember to check the other fertilizer companies as well. Parametric Technologies just continues to grind. If you look at this from a box setup perspective, every time it comes down to a box between the 10 period EMA and the 30 period moving average, that's where you buy. So I'd wait for a move down into this area, and then the first green candle after that move into the box zone, I would buy. Phillips, nice ascending triangle pattern, short pattern there, 6 weeks, pattern peaking, and we have stochastics leading and MACD now crossing on volume. So this should continue higher in the energy space with Iraq being in the news. Public storage with a nice sideways pattern here. A break above 123.57 should lead to higher prices. Note the volume, and stochastics leading with a MACD cross. Qcore, a risky stock in the same space as AKRX. Note the crossovers on the stochastics, but we are overbought here, so this is something to consider with a MACD cross in the near future. So Qcore has some speculation out there regarding news that whether they'll merge or not merge, or what the story is there. So this could very well be a double top. Just keep that in mind with stochastics overbought. It did lead, but MACD didn't really produce anything. O Realty, this came up on the scan, I believe, Wednesday or so. You can always check on my blog. Just type in the search window, Realty Corp, and we'll see what we said on this particular name. I believe we only saw it once. May 13th. No, it can't be that far back. June 5th. Nice ascending triangle pattern on Realty Income Corp, another REIT. Note the volume. Stochastics leading for a week, with MACD starting to turn up now on this breakout on volume. We're above the Kirby level here. Nice base being put in. Prices should continue higher. This would be more of a long-term play, I would say. The depth of the pattern here, take that as your target. So we're talking 50, 55 at least. If we look at the weekly, yeah, you see where prices could go on the weekly. Prices should just continue to grind along here. So this would be a longer term play. Prices are above the Kirby. There's no resistive volume up here per se, and things look good. I wouldn't chase it, but it's something to consider for the week. RLJ Lodging, another REIT name in the hotel business, breaking higher. Volume, note the pocket pivots here. Stochastics leading and MACD just now crossing. This one should continue on Monday. SLXP, we all know what happened on this name. Lots of mention on this pharmaceutical name last week, as well as back as far as April. John Boorman, I believe, was talking about this stock, as well as STT and a number of other people. But we did see this on the scan nonetheless. Showed up on Wednesday, Thursday. We saw stochastics double bounce here at a higher level. Lead MACD turn higher, so you could have been on this on Thursday for a push higher. SIR, Select Income REIT. This one looks pretty interesting in that there's so many things going on. We have a gap here. We have a Kirby level that prices are moving above. The Bollinger Bands are squeezing. Keltner channel is turning. The 200 period moving higher. We got a volume pocket pivot here in this area. Stochastics leading. MACD just turned. And Scooter double bounced here and is moving higher now. So that's a good sign for a continuation move on this name. Perhaps it fills this gap over the next couple of months with interest rates staying flat. I would think that that's going to be the case. SNH, Senior Housing Group, Senior Housing Properties, same thing. This name grinded higher. Prices are turning. Bollinger Bands are narrow, so we would expect those to expand and volatility to increase. Note the volume though. Nearly 10 million shares traded last week, Thursday and Friday. Stochastic leading, MACD cross coming. This could get very interesting. Spirit Realty Capital. Note the top here. Prices are above the Kirby. Got RSI continuing higher. Had a big pocket pivot a month ago. Stochastics leading and MACD turning. All these REITs are doing really well, so I'd be focused on that this week. Energy had its run last week. We had the mini trades on early Monday, so we were expecting a continuation move on Iraq news. Those should continue to do well, so just keep moving your stops up to areas below last week's Friday low. SWK, interesting ascending wedge pattern, which is somewhat bearish just from the standpoint of a pattern. We're at the top of that pattern, depending if you use this high or this high. This could point a little bit higher. We've got a pocket pivot on Friday. Stochastic leading and MACD just moving sideways. So this probably should continue higher. Just on a momentum basis, but I would be looking for a pullback at some point as an entry. THC, Tenet Healthcare, another healthcare name like WellPoint, like Humana, that should continue to move higher. Stochastics leading, MACD hasn't turned yet. So this isn't the nicest one out of that group. Aetna, US Healthcare, and WellPoint. Not US Healthcare, Humana. Double top on United Dominion Realty Trust. I would think that this is going to move higher. Note the volume that's been accumulated over the last few months. Stochastics leading here and a MACD cross. You see Mikey's texting me about something. WellPoint, we pointed this one out on Friday, that we saw this breakout on Thursday. Prices moving above the Kirby, hopefully. RSI trending higher. Volume increasing. Stochastic leading on a double bounce higher. And MACD turning. Thought Valero was on here. Let's take a look at some gas names. Note light sweet crude. This is a weekly chart. We're looking at these highs up here. Prices continue to move higher with Iraq not being dealt with effectively. Let's take a look at WPX. A couple of energy names continue to look good. These are just breaking higher. We had an entry here off of this wedge. Cup and handle pattern. The wife has this in her account. Stochastics led, MACD crossed, and things just continue to move higher. WLL, I believe Mikey has some of these. Similar pattern, handle, and move higher, grinding. Let's take a look at Valero. This was a name that we traded last week. Note this pattern here, a break above this level. We saw that happening with the stochastic leading and MACD cross on volume. So that looked good. Some of the other really good looking names, Continental Resources, continue to move higher on volume. Note little Kirby resistance we talked about last week. CRK, Comstock, another name, moving higher. We had a little bit of a hesitation on Friday. That's okay. This pattern is a breakout after a nice move higher. We had a nice consolidation period, and prices should move higher. Do note, however, Stochastics is overbought, so we look for a flag here, perhaps a pullback to breakout of this level here as an entry. Note that how the 10-period EMA is holding prices for now, and Bollinger Bands continue. If you look closely, however, Bollinger Bands, the lower bands are turning up, which indicates we could see a grind higher, slower move. When you see both the upper and lower expanding at the same time, that usually indicates a faster move higher. So right now, with the lower bands moving up, that is indicating a grind on CRK. FANG, let's see, Diamondback, where are you? There you are. Nice consolidation here after a nice move on huge volume over the last 2-3 weeks. Wait for Stochastics to recycle on this name and turn up. That should give us a bounce on the MACD, and this one should continue to move higher. I would expect this would be $100 by September, if not sooner. EMES had some selling last week, a little drop off there. You should have been stopped out. Note that when we have trades like this, breakout, we always put the stop below the previous day's trading low. So at 110, you would have been stopped out on this name, even though there was an upgrade last week by Stifel for the 120 target. I guess that's how they exit. They upgrade and then they get out. Gulfport Energy, a name that we were looking at last week, moving around this area of this gap down. No, Stochastics is turning back down. So these energy names will probably, some of them will continue, some of them are consolidating. So if you have anything that's got quite a bit of profit like we saw here on Kodiak, I would take some profits. We're completely out of this name now with nice volume. MACD's following through, but I would start to take some shares off on some of these names. NOG, same thing for NOG. The weekly continues to move higher. We have this 1790 area and this level here at 1755 that we're testing. We should pull back into this week, I would think. Consolidate a bit because this is a really nice move. Note the topping candle here. That's what we look for to take profits. Keltner channels continue to move higher, so that's telling you that invariably things will continue to move. Check back later. This is going to do it for me for the weekend. It's Sunday. It's beautiful out. I will post some high tide flag setups as well as some setups on the blog. So just come and check it out. If you're not a member, it's free to subscribe. Just fill your name in here on the email, subscribe, and you get these via email. Setups and thoughts for the week. Okay? So this is Cousin Vinny coming to you on the weekend, Sunday the 22nd. We'll have to look at the week ahead and some stocks to trade going into Monday, Tuesday. Take care.